Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching today's Ag Forecast, brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions, your premier platform for real-time global insights. Well, the last several days have had a lot of severe weather, and we saw again another round of nasty storms in parts of Oklahoma, Kansas, and Missouri that spread into Illinois in the overnight hours. But for many of us, as we were watching this particular animation, knowing that it was May 22nd, a lot of us had flashbacks to just 8 years ago, when the Joplin Ef5 tornado went straight through town, killing 162 people. This picture you see here was a before picture, and this is an after picture. This is what it looks like to see Ef5 strength tornado just destroy everything in its path. And had so many of us concerned because we were seeing very similar radar signatures that we saw 8 years ago in almost the same vicinity. What am I talking about? Large supercell thunderstorms like you see here with strong rotation in them. You see, this is what was going on in Joplin, Missouri. Joplin is right here, so just to the north of it. We had a big supercell with a pronounced hook echo, a hail core, and these storms were building in a line to the north and east, continuing to cause problems across Missouri and Illinois all night long. The circulation within each one of these storms was quite strong, and Andrew Pritchard from Nutrien was out chasing, and he got up next to this one, and you can see how wide the circulation is. Now, I record these videos very early in the morning, and I have been waiting to hear what the damage report looks like, because not only did we see this massive storm go through the towns just north of Joplin, where we produced a wedge tornado, that is one that is wider than it is tall, but multiple other storms raced through the middle part of Missouri. You can see them there on the storm reports map. In fact, we saw this particular image, which was posted by the National Weather Service out of St. Louis, showing a powerful tornado going through Jefferson City. Now, I don't know what yet the damage has been. I'm going to have to wait till daybreak to hear some of the reports here, but this was a very, very rough night on the anniversary of a very rough night so many years ago. And so this has been tough. Well, in addition to that, just looking at the bigger picture, look at how wet things have been over the last 3 days as well. We have spread rainfall well in excess of an inch across a huge section of the Corn Belt, across the middle part of the country. And meanwhile, that larger ridge over the southeast has just kept things away. There's been some scattered showers and thunderstorms, but not much. You know, the big question I've been trying to figure out is how far east are these storms able to progress? And I'll tell you this, the storms that rolled through my hometown last night, so here in central Illinois, and by the way, if I saw a radar image like this in about a month from now, had we been able to plant corn on time, this would have been laying corn flat due to the strong winds. We measured winds on the leading edge of this squall line that were 60 to 70 miles an hour. A lot of severe thunderstorm warnings out, and these storms in the early morning have progressed across parts of Indiana and are heading over toward the eastern Corn Belt. To kind of show you what this looks like, I'm going to go quickly into a high-resolution forecast here just for the next 36 hours or so. As of 6 a.m., we could see where the line of storms was going, but I want you to watch two things. First, you're going to see these storms continuing to build to the east, and you're going to watch the reemergence of the next system sweeping through this direction, and we're going to watch again a blow-up of severe weather right in that area. So we're just not shaking this pattern anytime soon. And here goes the animation. As you saw there, so step it back, we see the storms moving through the Ohio River Valley over toward the northeast. And behind it, another system emerges, races toward the north central plains, bringing showers, thunderstorms, heavy rain. And then from Iowa, stretching back through Missouri, Kansas, Oklahoma, we have yet another round of severe weather coming. Okay? This is just not done. And look, even more high plains snow on the backside of this. We've already seen huge snowfall amounts in parts of Colorado, Wyoming, even western Nebraska and southwestern South Dakota, and we still have enough cold air in place to continue that. Looking here on Thursday, that's the map that's over here on the right. What do we see? Well, we have our early morning severe weather threat in this area and severe weather throughout the day. And then again, we're just reloading right back in this corridor for more strong to severe storms. We will then see on Friday, look, that boundary just really isn't moving. So it's going to be the same locations repeatedly getting hit until we break down this large southeastern ridge, and they're going to be cooking underneath that down there in the southeastern part of the United States. More on that in just a moment. Even as I take you out to Saturday, we continue to see that boundary staying in place in through this area, and it'll be along that boundary that we have our greatest risk for severe weather. Notice a certain pattern here. I've said this many times, but we often call this a ring of fire pattern, because you notice around this big dominant ridge over the southeast, we have all of the thunderstorms that just keep going over the same area here. And that is something that we are going to be seeing at least until the beginning of June. But I want to see if things are going to change for June. So I'm going to take you back to my long-range forecast yesterday. You see, to understand if there's change coming in June, we have to know what May gave us. This is what's dominated our flow pattern. First, this elongated trough here and the ridge to its south has produced a very strong Pacific jet stream that has been rather zonal at times. It then dips into the Four Corner States and lifts here around this big ridge. All right, now what's helping this? High latitude blocking, higher atmospheric pressure here. Downstream of it, look, we have a trough sitting here in Central Europe and a trough sitting here kind of over Mongolia. Now, why I bring this up is because if there is going to be a pattern change for June, we have to get rid of this. And that pattern has made this part of the world very wet. Why? Because the jet stream has done that. It's also made Europe very wet. Why? Because the jet stream has done this. That's why this region shows up wet. And it's made much of China very wet. Why? Because the jet stream is dug into those troughs. It's just been set up like that across much of the northern hemisphere, and we got to break this down to see if there's any change. Now, I'll come back to what's going on in South America in just a few minutes here, but this map you've been looking at, that's the last 30 days of precipitation anomalies all over the world. Okay, are the signals we've been discussing coming? Well, check it out. We see that by the end of this week, the flow pattern of the jet stream is no longer zonal across the Pacific Ocean. It's got a whole lot higher amplitude to it. In the meantime, at least for the next 7 to 8, maybe up to 10 days, we're still going to feature this trough that's on the west coast and this large ridge over the southeast, which means the stuff I'm talking about here is for the beginning of June. We're going to still see this same pattern hanging on until then. But there's some other clues happening here. Now, I know I haven't ever really shown you these kind of diagrams here, but we're looking at a diagram that shows you latitude versus time. And one of the key features of El Nino has been this persistence since the end of April to the beginning of, middle and end of May here. We have seen this anomalously westerly winds. We see in the forecast the position and strength of those are to change by the time we get into June. This is just another clue that maybe El Nino is going to allow the Pacific Ocean to get into a little bit different configuration. That's what this is telling me. But before we get there, the latest European model which came out early this morning is still keeping this corridor very wet. We have multiple systems coming through. I'll show you the details in just a few minutes. You can see overall the southeast stays dry, and we still have that stronger Pacific jet until we get that pattern change, bringing moisture across parts of California and getting in there to the Intermountain West. So this corridor is going to continue to stay wet. We're going to continue to see problems for at least the next week plus. But I want to show you this. Brand new GFS model run just came out early this morning, and the week 2 precipitation anomalies in this area, which have been extremely wet, are now not as wet. So we're kind of trending that a little drier. And one of the big reasons, the dominant ridge that was here is sliding west with time, and it's flattening out. It's becoming more like this rather than a huge protrusion there over the southeastern United States. That's also allowing for this region to become wet too. So we have some changes that are coming. It is not the sustained long-term drier time period that many of us desperately need, but it is change, and that is important to recognize. Over the next 5 days, we hang on to this pattern overall, though, and the southeast is going to be scorched. Very, very warm temperatures across the southeast, getting deep into the 90s. We see, looking out to days 6 through 10, a very similar pattern hanging on there. But the question is, when does the change get here? Let me take you out to day 5. We're still in it. See the trough there? Large ridge sitting over here. The European ensemble is clearly telling us that this isn't going away anytime soon. We still have a strong jet stream. See, we have the low here and the higher heights there. So it's going to keep feeding this, and we're going to keep that trough around, but we're going to flatten out this ridge a bit, and that is the beginning of the change. But notice, it's not happening until around day 10, which is around June 1st and June 2nd. By day 15, look at what we've done. We've now started to lower the heights here and raise them there. Now, what does that mean when I say lower and raise the height? Well, we're talking about the depth of the atmosphere here. And this slows the Pacific jet down. In fact, it looks as though it's going to split again, and a piece is going to go up into British Columbia, and some is going to have to flow around the base of this. But the question is, how dominant is this ridge feature? And notice, we actually have height lines dipping over here, no longer bulging north like they had been. So the question is as that ridge gets over in this area, What does that mean for precipitation around it? That will be the toughest question to answer. Right now, the European model is recycling all of the moisture that's in the soil, and it's also still triggering quite a bit of thunderstorm activity in here, but just much, much less than we have been seeing. Much more maybe typical of this time of year. So let's walk through some of the details. You ready? Starting you off early in the morning on Thursday, our current low pressure system sitting over the Great Lakes, and it brought through a nasty squalling through Illinois and Indiana after bringing all those supercells into Oklahoma, Kansas, and Missouri. Now, as we press play, what do we see? We see system number 1 moving toward the East Coast, and this is where our main severe weather threat is, over here in the Northeast. But you're going to see the flow setting us back up to build another system here Thursday night into Friday morning. And there it goes. The next system goes right into this area. Now, with each one of these lows, they have to keep orbiting around this high, so which means they come up and they go directly to the east. So you're going to see that low that's over the Dakotas, bringing the rain into that area. Like I said, Thursday into Friday, it moves east with time. And here's the problem. When these lows go like this, and then over here like this, they end up dragging a front that kind of sits right in through this area. And that front that sits in that area is just going to continually serve as a boundary between temperatures, but also a boundary on which showers and thunderstorms can form. And the concern for me personally is this map right here. You can still see the boundary hanging out. And that means widely scattered showers and storms across this corridor as we progress into the day on Sunday, when I will be going to the Indianapolis 500. And I really don't want race delays. But let's see what else happens for corn planting delays. On Sunday night and Monday, we see our next system emerge. Again, dominant southeast ridge, still the major player here. And what do we see? We just see more systems curling up like this. But it is beyond this time period, because we're out to the 27th and 28th, where possibly a shift happens. Now, as we get out to the 20th and 29th, there's our last system. See it going through there? Right in the same trajectory. But as we get into the month of June, what do we get rid of? We get rid of the big dome of higher atmospheric pressure that's been sitting in that area. And the pattern begins to shift and change a little bit. We may still get around this, some at times heavier rain, but it is a much different look than what we've been seeing. Okay, let's blow this out globally and talk about some other major regions, then we'll wrap up this video. Elsewhere around the world, going on right now in South America, we're not hearing of any major weather-related stories. Yes, technically over the last 30 days we've had a bit of a drier bias here, but that's been as the safrinha crop is finishing up, and there's not been any major reports of problems. It is wet in southern Brazil, though. Where else is it wet around the world? Well, we are wet in China's major northern growing regions in through there over the next 15 days. We're also going to be wet in parts of Eastern Europe, but Western Europe has got a bit of a dry bias due to the changeover in the pattern. India is going to continue to stay very hot and dry, and take a look at what temperatures get to in the 10-day time period. We stay cool here, we stay cool here, and we stay cool there. And I just circled 3 major kind of regions around the world that are quite productive in terms of their setup for the weather systems for agriculture. India, by the way, still staying very, very hot. So I just want to give you that global perspective as we wrap up this forecast video. We at Nutrien Ag Solutions want to thank you for your attention. Hope you look forward to our next ag forecast coming up very soon. Have a great week and a great weekend, and we'll talk to you again. Thank you.